Okay, I figured I'd give a better example of what we do over on our Patreon at God Spears CQB by giving a more in-depth instruction into a power generation technique that can be increased even as you get older. I'm in my 50s, so it actually has continued to increase even for me. We're going to focus on kicking. And I have a student that's working toward becoming full contact UFC type fighter. So this is going out to her for sure. And also all of my other students and anybody else that's interested. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to monitor what's going on in our body while we go through these exercises. So we're going to work with an outside kick. We use it in the Northern Praying Mantis system. All the other Northern martial arts have it. We're going to work with a reverse outside kick. And there's a reason why we have to do both of them. Because there are two different points where I want you to focus on so that you know what your core is doing at the time of release. Because these things are released. They're not done. They're released. Okay? And then maybe if I'm feeling up to it, like I said, I'm getting old, maybe I'll show you the generation and a tornado kick. We'll see how it works out. See how I feel after the first few. So an outside kick was first introduced to me when I was a child. And we did it in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. And the teacher that I was training under, Don Nyan, and his brother Edward, were particularly powerful. They had extremely strong kicks. And all of their students had extremely strong kicks. So it was not by accident, obviously. Their teaching was amazing on this type of subject, that I was able to capitalize on it. And then, of course, I met Master Yang, who gave me a whole nother understanding of release and Fajing, and the way that is something beyond what we do. It happens after what we've done. So that's what I'm going to try to convey. So we're going to use load and opposition concepts from Little Hook Praying Mantis. I'm only going to use that particular art because it's easier to convey. They already have a system set up of understanding what I'm talking about, and it translates into Western very easily. So, and I might even put some up on YouTube, I'm not sure. But we're going to deal with opposition. And then what happens in opposition and the release, particularly with kicking. So the first kick we're going to do is an outside kick. So in slow motion, you're going to start, it doesn't have to be a perfect horse stance, I really don't care about that. That's another class, that's beginner stuff, that's fine. What I'm trying to do is show you why we're using the horse stance for the kick. So I'm going to start in the horse stance. Then I'm going to turn into opposition. Okay? Now in opposition, my elbow is pointing towards that knee. Okay? This is why I want you to, that's why I have to show you the two different kicks, even though they're close to the same kick. But they have to be described because there's different points of understanding of what's happening to you. So at this moment, when you're as far as you can go, and I don't just mean the foot, I mean this knee is pushing that way, this hip is pushing that way, and you're all tied up in a knot, and it feels like you're going to just explode. And then you go to the other side, same thing. And do it a bunch of times. Now I don't want you to stretch, that's not the goal here. The goal is to feel that elasticity. Too much stretching, I'm not saying don't stretch at all, too much stretching will take that away. You don't want to be a noodle in your core. You got to be a noodle here, but your core needs to be like a giant piece of rubber, okay? So I'm going to use this as my launch. Now I'm going to kick that way. And then I'm gonna let my hip go, and it's gonna hit the apex and come back down in an arc. So in slow motion, like that. Okay? And you do the same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna kick this way. This is here. This one's here. This one's here. Feel it? This one's here. Okay? Now you're using your core to just let go. There's no effort involved. If you try too hard, you're not going to get enough velocity. When I was younger, I was a hell of a lot faster. Well, I can't say that totally. I don't have proof of that. But I feel like I was. I'll put it that way. But I was trying, okay, which is a mistake. You need to let your core throw the kick. You have to put a little effort going this way, but it's that release. And the power translates. So, if you're here, make sure you have enough stuff in your base, especially if you're doing this at home, because as you get better, you're going to knock some stuff down. I've broken Master's picture, all kinds of stuff because it was too close to the wall. So you're just going to look at this, feel it, look at top and center. Remember, if you can't touch it, you can't kick it. That's why I'm hitting my hand. And besides, you don't want to, this isn't necessarily a kick. You could do it on the floating grips. But in general, this kick is used with the heel cutting across the top. So the heel cutting across the top. So your toes pointing back towards you. Now that's where the baji comes in. Okay. If you already know a scorpion kick, which is any version of the heel being out and the toe back towards you, whether it's this one, doesn't matter. That you get by doing a 7-star stretch, not too deep, remember, elasticity. And that's how the kick is, in the air. So my heel is going to penetrate here and go straight through. So that's the apex. And so if they're taller and your leg can't reach that, obviously you have to jump. Okay. Now that is the route to a reverse tornado kick too, which I'm not going to do that one today, but we'll do it eventually. So the power, let's see with that angle. Get deep into it. Now I'm going to push my stomach. That's another thing I didn't describe. Not only am I turning this way, but I'm not leaning forward. I'm pushing my stomach down towards my knee and all my organs down to get that feeling. And when you release, okay, second kick. This one will move mountains if you do it right. Because it allows, see the one I just did for exercise, you're in a bow stance. So you're not going to do that using it in the ring or in real fighting. You know, it's going to come right out the front. Okay? The second one, this is a fun little exercise that helps you get, it's basically a spinning outside kick. So, and in these types of kicks you never use without some kind of preamble. We'll use preamble. So when you start to see this, you know, the finishing movement, especially in the ring, if you want to get it done quick and you see that the lights are going out, okay, so you know you're doing something, and then, okay, so you're going to use your same kicking. Same kick. Okay, so what you do to get the generation right is you find the stopping point. And there's a couple of rules that you have to stick to in the early stages to help you get power. And that is, you always step toward the enemy. You don't do it from back here. I like to step toward and over to the side because I want to go through the target. Some guys step right out in front. I don't recommend that because if they do happen to recover, you're not going to be on a 45 or on a 6. Okay? And yeah, you will get on the 6 if you do it right. We'll go over that later with Bodway. So, if this is the X, this is the enemy, I'm going to step towards him as he's floundering. Now remember, I said there has to be a preamble. I'm not just going to say, wait a minute. He's going to be half knocked out. This kick's going to finish it. If you're good at kicking. You don't want to do this is more ring stuff. You try to pull something like this on the street and you misjudge somebody that's trying to kill you or hurt you, and you're trying to protect yourself and you make a misjudgment, they'll pick you up and you'll be done. So you have to be like lightning. That's why we don't teach the high kicking, but here we go. So I'm going to step towards it after I do the preamble. Oh, bam. I'm going to step to the outside. If I'm going to kick with the back leg, which is the right foot, I'm a right-handed fighter. Not that I can't change it up, but I'm going to do it this way right now. I'm going to get in whenever I step to the outside. Okay? This is very important. Now, this is practice. So you see, I stopped my foot like an eraser. What happened? It shows me the furthest position of binding. That's the best word. Binding your core. So again, you're taking a giant piece of rubber and you're twisting it till it can't go no more. Okay? But since you're moving, it's hard to learn that point, and you could do 100 outside back spinning outside kicks on a pad and never get it. But when you practice monitoring what your core is doing before the release, because remember, you're not doing this, you're releasing it. If you keep that in your mind, once you get to here, there's no turning back. Now that doesn't mean that you can't supplement this to protect you from the incoming that did see it. And that gets a little more complex. No matter any time you're moving, especially in a situation where you have to protect yourself, which we already discussed, you shouldn't do this anyway because of spinning and all that. But if you're an expert, you can do whatever you want, obviously. But in the ring, if you're in a full contact situation where the elbows are allowed, your elbows must be on the circle. Because as range changes, the weapons change. If you have multiple weapons moving at the same exact time, then they will hit somebody that has moved within its range. They might grab your leg, but the elbow's going to catch it. So we usually do it in tornado style with fists, elbows, all kinds of different stuff. But we'll get into that more on the Patreon. So I'm going to do several of these. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do whatever, just now you notice, the biggest priority in the motion is getting my head turned around so that I'm looking at the target. Because if I just go here, I don't even know where he's at. Even if he is floundering, his head position could be moving any direction. And this can change. And because you close the gap so much, you can change in midstream. So you go in, you stop. You stop. And then you let it go. Same thing on the other side. No big deal. Okay, so momentum for a tornado kick is based on the same thing, okay? You're going to wrap everything up, then you're going to let it loose. The only difference is, in a tornado kick, you have a helper. The helper is the first leg. So back in the old days when I was doing Shaolin Kung Fu, we used to do the four directions, the four corners of the earth, whatever you call it, kicking, to help learn a tornado kick, and I'll show you that right now. So basically, there's two kicks, only one of which is ultimately important. The first one, if you're doing the four corners, will open up. So all the principles I just told you about the outside kick apply to the first motion. So you're in opposition, you feel it, you let it go, and this one launches behind you. So you go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now the heel will still be the weapon. However, I want you to hit your hand because if you can't touch it, you can't kick it. So if you're not high enough to touch the head you're going to kick with your hand, you're not high enough to kick it. So we'll just show 1/4 kick. Okay? So you do that over and over again in a circle. Not a circle, well yeah, in four corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like I said. After a while, when the systems start to get in sync with each other, you'll be able to go into it. Now the way we did it at Wu-Tang, especially with the praying mantis system, is in a very aggressive manner. So you can use any type of punching or whatever you want as a preamble. We used the one punch because it taught us to get all the way in and then let the tornado kick go. Okay? So using a one punch propels movement. So you're still going to hit as hard as you can, which gives, so here's the example. Bag guy. If I go into the one punch, I want him moving out from my strike. And I want to observe the way that his momentum is going so that the tornado kick can hit the target. Okay? It doesn't have to be a one punch. It could be any forward motion. It could be that type of thing. Or, you know, right here. Or one hand, shingi. Any of that type of stuff. We'll do, this punch. So instead of just the one punch, we'll go, now you're going to pick this one up, and until you can see that target, this one is stuck. And when I say stuck, it's the binding again. You're trying to hold that thing back as long as you can. While you practice, you do what I call hang time. You let stuff hang and not come out to the last second. So if you go here, so the body brings it around. It still has all the same principles that the outside kick had, which is the whole secret of how it works. If you're using your right leg, I just did a right leg tornado kick, with muscle, you're not going to get right. And not only that, but you're probably going to pull a groin muscle. Because that's the equivalence to using your muscle to pick up your leg and smack somebody in the head, and that's not what this kick is. This kick has to do with the speed of the outside kick that is the predicate to the second kick. Now, I'm not saying you can't use the first outside kick. You can. It depends on your skill level. You know, this kick is still a kick. But what I am saying is that has to be focused if you want to get the second kick around. All right, well, that's an example of what we do over there on Patreon, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.